Welcome to the Minimalist Educator Podcast, where the focus is on a less is more approach to education. Join your hosts, Christine Arnold and Tammy Musiałowski, authors of The Minimalist Teacher and Your School Leadership Edit, a minimalist approach to rethinking your school ecosystem, each week as they explore practical ways to simplify your work, sharpen your focus, and amplify what matters most so you can teach and lead with greater clarity, purpose, and joy.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Minimalist Educator Podcast. Today we have made it, episode 100. We are not going to pretend this is just any other episode. It absolutely is not. This episode marks 100 conversations, 100 chances to learn, to be inspired, to be challenged. And to mark this milestone, we are joined by some of our memorable guests who've joined us over the last few years, educators, thinkers, leaders, inspirers. We are joined by David Hierle, Ming Shelby, Chris Fenning, Amanda Brueggemann, Shante Garrett, Lindsay Deacon, Stephen Puri, Amanda Kunlaba, Fred End, and Jessica Holloway. This episode really is a celebration of the guests, the community that has developed. You have all helped make 100 episodes possible. So listen in and enjoy this great conversation. It is something special. Hello and welcome to this very special episode of the Minimalist Educator Podcast. Today is our 100th episode, believe it or not, and we are joined by the most epic group of people. I'm so honored and blessed. I don't know about you, Tammy, but I can't believe that we get to have this many people come back and have a chat with us today.
I agree. I feel a little bit intimidated on our own podcast. We've had such an honor and a good time talking to different educational leaders and people in the field and just learning from different people across the country and different countries. Even we've had some people pop in from different countries besides the US, and it's interesting to hear the commonalities that we experience, the trends that we hear, but also just learning about different things from different people in their roles. So thank you all for being here today.
So what we're going to do for our 100th episode today is we are going to revisit some of the pare down pointers that our wonderful guests shared with us when they were with us last time, and then give us a little update or different pare down pointer if they want to, but just a little thought about what they're working on now compared to when they chatted with us last time. Or maybe something completely different is going on that they want to share with us. So I'd love to start with Fred End, if that's okay. He joined us in episode 70, thinking about rethinking professional development in K-12 education. And he left us with the pare down pointer of give yourself 24 hours to let the email or the idea settle before coming back to it. So please, Fred, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Tammy. And hi, everyone. Yeah, so that stemmed from the importance of allowing ourselves to really take the time to reflect and think clearly about our own messaging. I know you both think a lot about how do you really put the focus on what's important and remove some of those distractors, right? And I know I find if I get activated around something too quickly, I tend not to be very comfortable in actually getting to the heart of the matter, right? And so by giving myself some more time and forcing it, right, before I send an email, make a phone call, have a conversation with a colleague to really think through what it is I want to say and how I want to say it, I tend to be both clearer and also more caring with the people that I work with. And so certainly might be a pared down pointer, but it has helped me drastically in helping to move work forward and help people shift their practice. One thing that I'll briefly add is, when we were doing introductions and I was talking about my role, I work for an organization that's tied to K-12 education, but it's not a school or district. It's like akin to a county office, right? Or what's called a RESA, a Regional Education Service Agency. And since I can tell schools and districts till I'm blue in the face about the value of making shifts, but if they don't see the intrinsic value themselves, they are not going to do it, right? And so one of the other things that has been really helpful for me is thinking about the true rationale for why people want to engage in making change, right? It can't be about what I see, right? It has to be about what's going to make the most sense for them, right? So putting myself in their shoes, thinking through their eyes, ears, their mouths, and then also making sure that I truly understand the needs of the people who I serve. And so as I continue to grow in that work and work with more people, those are some of the things that I'm constantly thinking about.
Thank you, Fred. You are definitely one of the most reflective people I know, and I've learned a lot from you over our 11 years of friendship. And yeah, it's been pretty wild how long we've known each other. Does anyone have something they want to share back to what Fred has said? Some kind of connection or something similar in your work?
I was thinking, Fred, thanks a lot for that. I was thinking about how we don't give ourselves time to reflect, just generally, and we don't often offer time in classrooms for that, for students to reflect, that pause. And, in the research, it's called metacognition, but it's really just being able to sit back and think about how you're thinking and really listening to other people in that moment too. So it seems to me that's like an absolute starting point.
David, one of the things that I hear most often from schools and districts in this part of the country is, I wish that my building leaders would be able to focus more on teaching and learning, right? And a lot of times my response is, well, then we need to find ways to give them the time to actually think about teaching and learning. And if you think about principals, assistant principals in particular, they are constantly running from place to place, putting out fires, right? Or doing something to prevent fires from starting. So if we really want those leaders to be reflective, to think about what's happening in their classrooms, then we have to design structures that give them the space to do that. So thanks, David.
Thank you both for that. It seems like they should read the book, Your School Leadership Edit, that Christine and I just wrote. Just had to do a little plug there, of course.
I was not a plant in that either. They didn't tell me to say that. So.
Thank you for that. And David, since you responded to Fred, your episode, we had, I can't remember what season that was. I want to say 3, but it was episode 48, Unlocking the Power of Thinking Maps. And your pared down pointer was talking about frame of references and influences. Can you kind of update us on that? Or is that still in your line of thinking, what you would really recommend to people?
Great. Thank you so much. Oh, it's number 48. It's great to know that was a number on that somewhere in there. So it's great to be here. And thanks for the invitation and meeting everybody. I just do want to say that I just had lunch the other day with Art Costa, who's 94. And a lot of the folks on here were talking about coaching and facilitation and facilitating thinking. And he's amazing in that he started the cognitive coaching approach, pulled me out of the classroom in Oakland, California, and said, you got to do this. So back in the early 80s, and I'm aging myself there, it was a focus on really his work on metacognition and framing and how do you facilitate thinking in a non-judgmental way, which is even connected to what Fred was saying about how do you step back a little bit and give yourself the time and give others the time to do that. So since I was number 48, I forget how long ago that was, I've been really working on the intersection of artificial intelligence and, if you will, the development of human abilities to think. And I mean, it's sort of a strange term, but the interface between those. So I got really animated about 15 years ago when I read a book, How to Create a Mind, which was by one of the leaders in the AI field. And it just matches up with the fundamental processes. He was saying, hey, there are these fundamental processes of the human brain and mind. And that's what I've been really looking at, basic stuff that we see every day in classrooms, sequencing, cause and effect reasoning, framing, comparing, all these things that, like the NAEP results just came out some months ago, and we're flatlining on, reading scores. But I think in this day and age, what I've been thinking about is that we're flatlining on really facilitating student thinking. So they have the filters to really deal with all the information that's just flooding through flooding through social media, not just sort of AI and going on and doing a search. So I really began to refocus thinking maps. I really started challenging my own model. I said, there's some real discrepancies here about the connection between these different kinds of visual patterns. So I developed a sort of a refined minimalist model, okay, if I can use that, a minimalist model of fundamental cognitive processes that are linked together visually. And it's called NeuroPoints. We're about to launch software that's directly related to that for students and teachers and in the business world as well. So it's really trying to say, what are the filters this has been the animating question for me and a real passion in the last few years is how do we provide students with the filters to seek patterns in any information that's coming at them, whether it's social media, in the classroom, AI searches, creating even better prompts that are driven by their own thinking so they're not cheating themselves in that way. So that's really where I've been focused. And it really does come down to that, back to Art Costa's work, the framing. How do you step back, see how you're thinking, pattern those ideas, and be able to share those with others? So it's been exciting. It's been quite a run. I have a new partner that's been in AI for 15 years, and he's a true humanist. And I think that's what that book, How to Create a Mind by Ray Kurzweil, was about, is what are those human capacities? How do we create those filters, very practical ones for kids and all of us to use? So it's been fun.
Fantastic. Really interesting work, David. I think we'd have to go directly to Stephen after that comment. I'm sure Stephen would be able to jump in with some really interesting thoughts.
I'm not going to drop anything like metacognition multiple times in my speech, but I hope it's still worth listening to.
So, no, Stephen, you joined us in episode 79 talking about productivity.
David, when was episode 79? Do you remember?
I think it was soon after 48.
It's like March
somewhere
1940 or something. I don't know.
Oh,
I think we talked about the keeping sort of sacred time for yourself, right?
Yes, yeah, golden hour, sacred time. Yeah,
golden hour, excellent phrase. I would be happy to expound upon that. I'll tell you, the biggest lesson for me since we spoke was I'm a dad now. And
congratulations.
Which I'm super excited about. Yeah. He's downstairs and just like, I don't know if you guys can see that anywhere.
Very sweet.
But whatever premium I placed on time before has been magnified 10x. So as you guys know, I run a focus community in the Suka, which is a flow state app. And by virtue of doing that, a lot of people approach me about like, hey, could I have a one-on-one with you and just bounce some ideas off you about how I could be more productive, more focused, healthier, right? So a lot of it comes down to, okay, so you're dealing with procrastination. Got it. Oh, distraction. Got it. Okay. Motivate. Like it's the same common things you hear hundreds of times over. And what's interesting is in talking with a lot of our community, they are mostly remote working parents. And boy, the last 4.5 weeks have driven home for me the kind of stories that they've told me. There was a guy that in the community named Roy King, who, there's a group chat there. So in between sessions, you can kind of talk to the people because unlike, Twitter, which is sort of full of like angry people hating on each other, or Reddit people telling each other they're not right about something, like here it's a lot of people just cheering each other on. And this guy had posted, over the past year, 2 years, stuff he was working on at night. And then one day he finished his dissertation. And people in the chat were like, hey, man, that's kind of a big mic drop. You just sort of casually posted. He said, yeah, but give me 2 weeks from Monday or something. I have to defend it. So don't celebrate yet, right? So in the course of doing this, people, wished him luck, And it was awesome that Tuesday, after that Monday, he posted a group chat, you may now call me Dr. King. And people went kind of nuts, really celebrated this. He said, so I have a job as an assistant vice principal at a high school in Missouri. And I'm also a dad. So I have this little window of time between responsibilities when I've been, using this app to get something done, because that's all I got. And I wanted to finish my engineering PhD. And that was really inspiring for a lot of people, including myself. And I loved it. And now I think about him and I'm like, okay, so I have probably 60 minutes of nap time when I can do something quietly. And you can't see it off camera. There's a little bassinet. So I can kind of lean over and be like, okay, still sleeping. Good. I can get something done. And it is enforced with me. I know I shouldn't say this, but as someone who has talked a lot over the past 10 years about productivity and healthy productivity, it has enforced in me a greater discipline than I had already about how not to go down rabbit holes, how to prioritize, how to go, that's not actually worth my time. I thought it's worth 20 minutes. It's not. And that razor becomes really sharp. And that has been that is by far the biggest change since we did episode 79, however many days, weeks, months ago.
Thank you, Stephen. That's a big life change for you for sure. And it was making me think about, I was trying to draw some connections to some of our other guests' pare down pointers. And I was like, okay, well, we've got Shantae, who's like an OG because she was one of our very first guests in season 1, where she was talking about honoring our true selves, which you definitely have to do as a parent. And then I was thinking too, maybe this is more like a tangible thing, because Jessica was talking about to-do lists and what you say yes to and what you don't now, especially now as a parent, right? But there's that connection between education and parenting as well. So Jessica, do you want to maybe talk about your tips?
Yeah. So I was nodding my head a lot as, a professional and as a parent. There's only so much time in the day, and you want to make sure you're investing your time in what matters. And I talked a lot about are you running your calendar? Is your calendar running you? Is your to-do list taking over, or are you making your to-do list? And so I am still continuing every Friday on my calendar. There's a 1:00 reminder that says work the list. And so every Friday at 1:00, I am revisiting my to-do list. I am going back to the Monday of that week and checking my inbox to see, what did I not respond to? What do I need to finish? So it's my spot check. I still do it. It's still a good practice that I have in place. But it was making me think about moving back into a school-based coaching role and how many competing priorities there can be at a school level. And as things come across, if you said yes to everything, nothing would be important. There wouldn't be a focus. And I can see how teachers can very much feel like there's always something new coming along, because the reality is, if you let it, there's always something new coming along. So in thinking about, coaching, my coaching partner and I have tried to really consider, is this in line with our action plan and our goals? Is this something we're going to say yes to? Does it fit right now? Or is that something we can build on next year as we progress with what we have decided was going to be our focus for this year? So I think I see it a lot in what we're saying yes to as far as professional development, what we're doing as a staff to make sure that what we're saying yes to aligns with what we want to see accomplished, instead of the constant, there's a shiny thing over here, or there's a new thing over here. And now it's just, we're stacking new things all the time. But how can we, streamline the things and make sure we're investing our time into those areas? Because if we do that right, we'll be able to add the things and build onto it.
Yeah, very important stuff, Jessica. Thank you. Did anyone want to respond to what Jessica was saying there, or Stephen before that?
I definitely connected with this one, and you may have already had the intention to kind of have me connect, because mine was about like time blocking. And both of what you said, I think is really important. And I even thought of, because of my passion with new teachers, I think about what they look at in their time and what they choose to do over what they need to do, and trying to really help support some of our newer teachers with managing that time effectively. And so, like, just blocking those tasks that are the most important for them, but then like helping them and guiding them, whether it's through coaching or mentoring, of what are your tasks that you have to prioritize, kind of to your point, so that, you can't say yes to everything. But then I think also too, it's like that shiny thing. A lot of the new teachers want to do the fun, creative, like put the fun spin on their lessons or their activities. And it's, I think, something that's like, is that really what you need to be focused on at this moment? Is it going to get you the output that you want with your student learning? And just thinking of time in that sense. So, because their plan time, sometimes are they using that effectively, and like trying to help them navigate that so that it goes back to that balance of, work-life balance, so they don't feel guilty if they're not doing something at home that night, and then they can take a break, because that's important too, to give ourselves those breaks. So, gosh, all of your points connected so well, but I think it's almost like a funnel. We have to funnel down to our teachers. We have to help them with how to manage their time. So,
Can I connect back to Stephen and Amanda? Because it has me thinking about this whole fear of missing out. Because when you're a parent, there are things you just you say no to because you have other priorities. But I think there are times where we say yes or want to say yes out of fear or flattery. Like someone flatters us and, oh, you would be great on this. And you end up saying yes, and you're like, well, I didn't even want to do that, but they made me feel so good about it. How could I not say yes to that? Or it's a fear of, what if this opportunity never comes back again and I might miss something? And so you end up saying yes because you're afraid you're not going to be able to do it again. So I talk to teachers a lot of times because I this is confession. I'm in the situation of the fear and flattery, but I think sometimes we make those decisions based out of those two factors.
I apologize for the fact that I'm in an unreasonably good mood. So just like assume I'm normally more normal. But right now I'm in that joy of like this little thing that makes me happy. I would add this, which is a bit of a counterpoint to what you were saying, which is I've been experiencing the joy of missing out because it has been such a great razor for me in terms of like invitations that I don't actually want to accept, things I don't actually want to do. Just go like, I have a 3-week-old at home. And everyone's like, totally cool. No, dude, you do. You take care of the little one. And it's allowed me to focus on the things I actually really deeply care. Like today, I was excited to come about this. This is not like a paid speaking engagement. This is not a room full of boring engineers who are going to ask me stupid questions. I said yes because I was like, oh, actually, I do want to do this. I enjoyed our episode. I enjoyed the pod, and I was like, I'll be here. And I've experienced a lot of that. Yes, I'm in my joy of missing out era. It may not last long. This may just be sleep deprivation talking. I don't know yet, but I'm happy, and let's roll with it.
That's such a great connection because right now in some of the schools that I'm going in, there is no joy. And so I love that you're bringing all the joy into this conversation because we know that it's so important. And again, I'm making so many connections between what people have talked about, but what's popping out to me right now with Lindsay, you were talking about how people are not motivated by our goals, right? It has to be by their own goals. And this kind of lends itself to, I'm a parent now, my priorities have shifted. I'm thinking about different things. So I don't want to do what you want me to do. I want to do the things that I need to do. So Lindsay, what do you think there?
Just feel like I've been thinking about so much, recently. So I'm coaching a brand new high school teacher this year. I'm coaching a lot of new teachers this year, but there's one particular that just came to mind, especially while Amanda was talking too, where he was saying, I had a professional job before. This is like his second career. And he said, this job is completely unsustainable. And we had a lot of conversations about just the vast amount of tasks that are on every teacher's job, let alone when you're a new teacher. And in our coaching conversation, it was really important to just acknowledge, like, yeah, this is literally a job that is unsustainable if you try to do everything. That's like impossible. So you have to be really finite with what you choose to put in your calendar. But then also going back to like that JOMO, like our conversation really was, what is bringing you joy as a new teacher? And you need to have fun with your students, and they need to want to come to class, or else you're all going to burn out. It's not just the educator who's going to burn out, but also students disengage. We know what a killer boredom is when it comes to instructional achievement, right? And so just really focusing on those small bits during your day that you can be thankful for, but also to acknowledge that you can't do everything. And that is there's no real science to this, right? And we've talked about blocking your calendar, but you, as a teacher, like you could block your calendar all day long, but people are coming in the door and your phone is ringing. And so it's really the ability also to know yourself so well that you can say no and you can feel confident what you're saying no to. And that's like a learned skill over time. So I really don't have advice here. I just feel like every year I observe this, but I feel like particularly this year, I'm just really in the thick of it with a lot of new teachers who feel like a little lost and hopeless. And so it's our job to help them reorient where they need to be.
Can I make a connection between that and two or three previous comments?
Yeah,
so,
and I want to jump in as well.
Oh, sure. Please go ahead. You go first.
No, you go ahead. I'll come behind you.
We should all put our hands up like we're in school. That joke has been on my tongue all day. I apologize. Terrible dad jokes. So the connection is we've got burnout, we've got time blocking. We've had a couple of people mention, David, you talked about career progression and doing things quickly, shiny objects. And there's a counterintuitive approach to help solve some of these things. So thinking about the professional development of staff, and this relates to the topic that we talked about, which is making training stick after you've done training for outside of the classroom. This is for teacher development, for admin staff development, and so on. We tend to approach training as it's an extra thing. It's 2 hours of extra to solve a particular problem, cram it into your schedule, and then that will solve whatever the problem was that the training was focused on. And that's the wrong way to do it. Because not only does it create a short-term time issue, because I have to find an extra few hours to do the training, it also doesn't solve the problem. Because like with our students, we don't teach them something once and then expect them to learn it. They have homework, they have repetition, they have study groups, they have all these other methods over time to reinforce. And yet within this environment, we expect the adults to be told something one time and then adopt that and change their habits and behaviors. So the method that we use in the very honorable attempt to try and make work life better for the principals, for the admin staff, for everybody who's serving the students, we actually make it worse by just shoving training in. And the solution is, counterintuitively, to do more training, but in smaller amounts over time, focused on solving any one of these problems that we've talked about. And picking the things that are most time intrusive, that are causing the most stress, the most burnout, and taking a longer term, slower approach, just like we do with our students, to help change those, help overcome those problems. And then that gives us a fighting chance of stopping burnout, avoiding this sort of, I'm going to do time blocking until I no longer have time to do time blocking, because that by itself takes time. So there's a shift that it would be great if the staff could have the same mindset for their own development and the same support as we provide to the students to help them learn.
Thanks, Chris. Go ahead, Shantae.
Thanks, Chris. I was going to say, because and I'm going back to tie back to Fred's thoughts as well. Fred's particularly working with leaders as well and thinking about that space. And I forget what episode I was, but showing up as your authentic self. And that's one of those things
when we're having these conversations, because oftentimes as leaders, we have this mask because we have to show up as who we think our folks need us to be. And that may not always be who we need us to be in those moments. They may not be the same person. And that's a tax in itself. And so when we're talking about this fear of missing out or this joy of missing out and what those pieces may be, and also the stress and the things that may come on top of those, then we kind of need to be thinking about the load, right, that we're asking leaders to carry as they are supporting their teams to navigate these different pieces, right? Because I can guarantee you, if there's a burnt out teacher, there's probably a burnt out leader in that space as well. And so it might be PD, it might be bite-sized PD, but I can also guarantee you there's a system that is not working. Right. Teachers may not get a chance to calendar block, but the leader, if that calendar block is not working, there might be a chance to to revisit that. And every leader may not have the luxury of a coach or the luxury of being able to afford someone, but I can tell you the ones that do get a chance to sit with an consultant or someone, then that's when you hear them say, this is the release. This is the release. I am overwhelmed. And to be able to get that support, to rethink the processes, to rethink how we are going to do this, and to rethink what is it that I need so I can show up better and support better in these spaces. And so it is rethinking what is the dynamic here, right? And so it's rethinking the entire system in itself. PD might be the fix. It might be something that we are not implementing correctly. It may be something that's not implemented correctly, but I can guarantee you it is probably something that we don't have the capacity to do, that we need to re-systematize altogether, right? From what students are expected to do, what teachers are expected to do, and what leaders are expected to do. Because a lot of times we probably take a program and try to make it fit instead of probably looking at our capacity to do what we can do and scale it up with what we have versus trying to make what we have fit something that we can't scale to.
Can I jump in with a quick thought? So all of these ideas are making me think about something else that overlays all of this, right? Which is the idea of like career progressions, right? Because if you think of our roles in any profession as mapped out on a bell curve, right? And so you have that initial starting point where it's like drinking from a fire hose, right? That ramp up to get things started. And then you're at like the apex, maybe in the middle of your career, oftentimes questioning yourself, like, am I doing enough? Is this like where I want to be, right? Like, where do I go from here? Right. And then, of course, you've got like the third portion of that bell curve. And that's not to say like it's all downhill from here, right? But you have like as I enter that final stage of my career, right, I have a little bit of like the grandparent effect, right? Which is like, you know how people are always like, that's like Grandpa Fred. He says what he wants, like it's he's going to do what he wants to do. Right? You start to enter that phase where your built up experience, your ideas and opinions, sometimes wrongly though, get really set, and so you can do things like say no to things which you might not. as a beginning career educator, right? And one of the things I think is really important that I'm coming back to is we have to find ways to shift some of those allowances that we might give to people, right, at various points in their career towards everyone. Because there's no reason that a starting teacher, back to your point, Lindsay, should not be able to say no to things that they can't manage, right? Where they have to fear for their role, for what people will think about them, and put themselves by nature of that in impossible situations, right? So it's just something that's going around in the back of my head as we're chatting. So thanks.
Thank you, Fred. Grandpa Fred. Grandpa Freddy. That's a forever image now. The connections that are coming from this conversation are so wonderful. And I'm thinking about, we've kind of evolved into this really complex conversation on so many levels, like from beginning teachers to flow states to Grandpa Fred and, later career. But what it really comes down to is, like Shantae said, we're looking at, how do we shift a system so that everybody can flourish and there can be joy back in our spaces and we can be the people that we want to and need to be for each other. And so we have about 10 minutes left of our episode. So we want to bring some light to Amanda, Kay, and Ming, because there's a lot of what you do that is centered around that joyful experience in education. So maybe Amanda, will start with you because art is joy and it's a great creative outlet. And sadly, I'm not seeing art in some schools that I'm working in. And it makes me really sad to see that kids aren't getting that kind of outlet and creative space. So let's hear from you where you're at and tell us a little bit more about your new book, actually. Pop that in there.
There's so many things that were said that I can make connections to, but the underlying theme that I keep hearing is just this overwhelm and teachers they don't know where they're supposed to get permission to be creative, and that our creativity is such a part of who we are as humans. This conversation is not about standards, it's really not even about the schedule. It's about our humanity and whether or not we're going to make it as human beings and as a group of human beings. I have teachers that email me from all over the world on a daily basis. Not a day goes by that I don't hear from somebody that says, my kids just cannot learn this skill or this standard. I've tried everything I can think of and I am miserable and I am not going to make it. I'm sick of this job. And I found your website. And how can I dip my toe into the water of something related to art, but connect it to what I have to teach so I don't get in trouble? And help, it's a cry for help. They're miserable. And what I can do is say, let's find you a 5-minute something that is related to your math standard, or because that's what I'm really good at, is seeing the connections across all the arts and all of the other content that teachers have to teach. Let's find something that relates to that standard and let's hone in on the vocabulary between the art form and the art standards and what you're teaching. And there's always overlap. And then it's like, play a song, find an art print to look at, and that's your starting place. And you can dip your toe in the water and you're going to feel better immediately. You're going to get some relief. And you can always tell your administrator or whoever wants to know what you're doing in the room, how that's related back, because I'm helping you have that language. But it's paring it down. We talked about paring it down to that vocabulary when I was on the podcast before. But it's like, but by doing that, they're doing this huge thing for themselves and their students, but not just themselves, like their families, because they have to take that, what's in killing them in that job, they have to take that home and be with their babies and their families. And these teachers have aging parents and we have lives, we're humans. So I think what everybody's saying about how do you manage all your time and then how do you do what's really important to you. When teachers email me and they say, I am desperate to do something for my students because they are miserable and I'm miserable, and I think art would help us feel better. it can be, you can dip your toes into that in 5 minutes. You can. And I think get immediate relief from some of that stress. There's nothing stress relieving and more joyful than arts. I mean, it's just at the basis level of who we are as people, we respond to the arts, and we always have. So
Thank you. Just connecting that to Ming, your work around courage. It takes a lot of courage for a teacher to be able to reach out to someone and say, I'm in this desperate place and I need somebody to like point me in a direction. So Ming, we had you on the show a couple of times, and both of those conversations were about, being brave in your space and having courage. And so what are you thinking at this point?
Yeah, I want to first echo what Amanda just shared about art and space. One of our schools recently had their literacy family night, and one of the stations was related to art and designing their own wishing tree. And you could just hear the buzz in the room and the smell of glue and glitter and all the joy that was around that. So I just want to echo what you shared, Amanda. And I think I would like to feel like there's hope in education, right? That we're not doomed for like burnout forever and disaster and as much as the current climate is, right? Like I would like to think that we are inspiring the next generation, the future builders. And this goes to what several people shared about was like the importance of student voice in these opportunities, that no matter where you are in schools, whether it's a building teacher, coach, leader, district leader, of how like the audience we're serving is still the students, right? And how do we create these environments where they feel safe, supportive, belonging, that they can be like, I am courageous enough to share what brings me joy in my classroom, and also courageous enough to share out when something's not going how I think it should go. And sometimes what I notice is that the students' courage impacts the teachers, and they're like, wow, this 5-year-old was so courageous, just, sharing something that was really challenging. Like maybe I can do that with a colleague. Maybe I can do that with somebody else. And then just like fostering these environments of belonging and connection that, we're in this together and we got this. It's hard, but we got this.
Beautiful. I love that, Ming. You always come in with some inspiration for us. I love it. But yeah, that idea of hope and not all is lost, and what Amanda was saying about the humanity behind the work that we do. I mean, that really gets to the heart of why Tammy and I started this podcast, is to really, try and spread that message of like, we can do this and we can do it together. So thank you for that, guys. We will wrap up soon. We've heard a little bit from everybody, but is there any last words that anyone would like to share? I know I definitely want to make sure I tell Lindsay that I have said to so many people since we chatted that you can't motivate other people by your own goals. So just letting you know, Lindsay, that has come up a lot recently. Does anyone else want to share anything before we wrap up?
I'll jump in. I was really taken because working with this small group over the last couple of years, we've been focusing on efficacy, and it's sort of beyond efficiency and effectiveness. It's like, what is really efficacious? How do we facilitate student voice and agency? And one of the keys that I was sort of surprised by, I guess, and this group obviously won't be, is that one of the keys to efficacy is hope. And I was just sort of taken by the conversation today around and Ming's, comment about student agency and yes, hopefulness. And so that's one of the things that came out of looking around in the research and then just engaging in conversation. So hope is a key.
Oh, can I add on really fast to that? That was so good. So I did a lot of research around just building efficacy with new teachers and mentors. And something that I feel like I'm connecting between several of us is that collaboration piece of how can we build efficacious and confident teachers, and just thinking about, no matter what like time, managing time, whether we're trying to help bring hope back into our work or that passion back in education, but how we have to learn to depend on each other. And we have to teach our students and our learners to work together to do that too. And that's something that's really important. And I think it's what's helping us build resilience as how we can work through this. And so that's some of my most recent work too, is how can we do that? And the first habit that I've talked about with some of my co-authors in a new book is about how do we create self-efficacy to build habits for resilient learners. And that's the first habit we talk about. So I'm glad you brought that up, David. That's just right up my alley. Thank you.
Something that came back into my mind that I've been putting into practice, because I remind myself of this, but I include it when I send opportunities to fellow educators, that an invitation is not an expectation. An invitation means you can say yes and you can say no, and both are acceptable answers. So when I share, hey, this opportunity is out there, I also put in there, this is an invitation, not an expectation. If it doesn't align with your goals for this year, it's okay to say no. I'll keep sending you opportunities that come along, but I also have to remind myself, but if someone needs to hear it, an invitation is not an expectation, and no is an acceptable answer.
Okay, it looks like everyone has made their final comments. So thank you so much, everybody. We are so incredibly honored that you all came back and joined us and shared more of your incredible wisdom with us. So thank you so much for joining us today, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
This episode is sponsored by Plan Z Education Services, supporting educators with forward-thinking professional learning that puts both student impact and teacher wellness at the centre. Driven by a vision to teach less, impact more, they help educators find purpose, prioritise what matters, and simplify their practice. Learn more at planzeducation.com.
Thank you for listening to the Minimalist Educator Podcast. Join Christine and Tammy and guests again next time for more conversations about how to simplify and clarify the responsibilities and tasks in your role. If today's episode helped you rethink, reimagine, reduce, or realign something in your practice, share it in a comment or with a colleague. For resources and updates, visit planzeducation.com and subscribe to receive weekly emails. Until next time, keep it simple and stay intentional.